Hi and welcome in this new video. My name is Marc Lemati and I'm super happy to show you another exciting feature in Airflow 3.1, the Human in the Loop feature. And you may wonder, what are Human in the Loop workflows? Well, Human in the Loop workflows are processes that require human interventions. For example, to approve or reject an AI-generated output or choose a branch in a DAG depending on the result of an upstream task. So a Human in the Loop workflow is a workflow that requires a human check to continue its execution. But let me show you a use case. So imagine that you have the following data pipeline that helps you to answer support tickets. You can see the first task fetches a ticket, then the second one answers the ticket using a LLM, then you have a special task where you need to check the answer that the LLM produced. And that task requires a human check. And concretely, with the new Human in the Loop feature in Airflow 3.1, that task will wait until you check or someone else check the answer of the LLM. And as soon as you do that, then the DAG will continue its execution and send the answer to the user. And there are many use cases in which that feature might be useful. For example, your DAG uses AI to create responses to a support ticket and you want to ask a human to review the response and approve it or request changes. Or maybe your DAG generates a compliance report and you need a human to verify and acknowledge the results. Or you would like to use AI to route product feature requests to the appropriate team and need a human to decide where to send edge cases. And last but not least, maybe you have a DAG that requires input from a domain expert, for example, to input feedback gathered in user research interviews. So as you can see, there are many use cases in which you may need to require a human intervention before continuing the execution of your DAG. Now, let me show you the operators that Airflow 3.1 introduces to enable the Human in the Loop workflows. The first operator is the HITL operator, which is the base class for all Human in the Loop operators. There are two parameters that are mandatory when using a HITL operator. The first one is the subject, which is the subject that will be displayed as the title in the required actions tab. I will show you that in a second. Then you have the options, which is a list of strings that are rendered as response options at the bottom of the required action form. And then you have many optional parameters that you can use as well, such as the body, which is the main text body. You have the defaults, where you can provide a list of one or more options that are selected by default if the task times out. You can see at the bottom that there is an execution timeout, which means after 5 minutes, if no one checked the task, in that case, the default value will be chosen. Otherwise, if there is no default value, then the task will fail. And finally, you have two other parameters, multiple. If set to true, then the user can select multiple options, and by default it is set to false. And you have params that you can use to create form fields for any user input to the required action using Airflow params. So I recommend you to use this operator if you need flexibility, as it allows you to display custom options for your user to choose from, as well as additional input fields with params. Then the second operator is the approval operator. And if you are looking to make a binary decision, approval or rejection of information displayed at runtime, you should use this operator. It is pretty simple. Basically, if the human chooses to approve, the task succeeds. If the human chooses to reject, the task succeeds, but all downstream tasks are skipped. Next, you have the HITL branch operator, and if you want to branch your DAG based on the human input, then you can use this operator. This operator allows you to choose one or more tasks that are directly downstream of this operator to run next. So all tasks that are not chosen will be skipped like any other branch operator. Finally, you have the HITL entry operator that it is useful if you are mostly interested in letting users provide input to a form. So this one is again pretty simple to use. The user provides input to a form and then submits the input without choosing from a list of options. Alright, now let me show you some of these operators in action. Here is a simple example using the approval operator. So as you can see, this data pipeline has 3 tasks, and most importantly, you have one task, approval task, that uses the approval operator. If you carefully take a look on the code, you can see here the approval operator with the following subject, this body that uses the upstream task, so pineapple on pizza, and then the default value is approve. So if that operator times out, this will be the default value. And also we use params if we want to give some inputs to the task. With that, let's trigger the DAG to see what happens. So let's wait a little bit. Okay, you can see that the first task is running. Now it is in success. And we have the approval task, which is deferred. And I want you to remember that all the human in the loop operators are deferrable operators, which means they will be deferred while waiting, so they won't use any worker slot, which is pretty cool. But if you click on that task, the approval operator task, and expand that a little bit, you can see here required actions. And this is where you need to make a decision on that task. So do you approve or reject whatever you have here? Pineapple on pizza, this is just a simple example. And then you can add a second topping if you want. But let's say we approve, we click here, and now the data pipeline is going to continue its execution. And as you can see, the DAG has been successfully executed. Another example is this one using the human in the loop branch operator. So as you can see, that task is using the human in the loop branch operator, and so I will have to choose which task I want to execute next among those tasks. So let's trigger that data pipeline again to see what happens. Okay, so now the first task is gonna run, and now this one is waiting for my input. One thing that you can do is, instead of clicking on that task, you can go to Browse and then Required Actions, and you see here that this one is waiting for a choice. So let's clicking on that task, and then from there, I can choose which task I want to execute next based on the value that I can see right here. So let's say I want to approve the marketing budget, so I'm gonna select this option. Keep in mind that you can select multiple options as well, but for now, we're gonna pick that one only. Then we click on Respond. Wait a little bit, and you will see that the corresponding task will run, which will be marketing. So let's wait a few seconds, and here we go. Marketing has been executed while the others have been skipped. So again, this feature is super powerful, and I'm sure you will use it a lot in many, but not only AI workflows. So that's it for this video, and I see you for the next one.